Yo, what up? This is D Knight, and you're listening to the Pardon the Interaction podcast. My oh my, we've had so much going on. For starters, in case you missed it, we've got a new addition to the Pardon Pie family, Tara Dublin. Make sure you go follow her on Twitter at Tara Dublin Rocks. Also, pick up a copy of her book while you're at it. Make her day, The Sound of Settling. A very fun and interesting read compared to the things we talk about on this podcast. But yeah, we're heading toward the do or die time for the 2024 election. Go ahead and hit up JoeBiden.com. Get that man like $1 a month or something. Help his campaign staff up and get prepared to try and save our democracy. And make sure to grab like one other person you know and tell them about the podcast. Make sure they subscribe and tune in every single week. We got a lot of things coming up for you this year. We need all the support that we can get. So if you do your part and help us grow our audience, we'll do our part and help elect Joe Biden in 2024 and save American democracy. And this is the Pardon the Interaction podcast.
One, 2, 3, 4.
All right, Carol, after you.
All right. Espionage dress rehearsal.
Fun time.
The investigation into the handling of classified documents by former President Donald Trump and his aides has revealed new details that raise concerns about the potential violations of the Espionage Act and obstruction of justice. The timing of events has come under scrutiny as two of Trump's employees reportedly moved boxes of papers the day before FBI agents and a prosecutor visited his Florida home to retrieve classified documents.
Carol.
In response to a subpoena. Oh, that does not look good. I assume that those visits were scheduled.
You seem to be shocked by this recent development. They were like, oh, the FBI's coming tomorrow. We might want to move these fucking boxes.
So they knew this was a planned visit and they moved them the day before? That's...
seems very sketchy there, Carol.
Seems like some fucking intent to me. Yeah. So investigators view this time... I think I'm being so clever. Here's the investigators view this timing as suspicious and possibly indicative of obstruction. Additionally, sources familiar with the matter claim that Trump and his aides conducted a quote dress rehearsal for moving sensitive papers even before receiving the subpoena in May 2022. So these motherfuckers are sitting around practicing hiding documents. It's like a sketchy restaurant. Like
they're planning it. They're like running through it, like, you know, like the dress rehearsal for a wedding. Like, here's the plan. Here's how we're gonna get the fucking documents here, here, and here. Should anyone come looking? It's insane. They're going to prison. Oh, and just buckle in, folks. This is gonna be a doozy. Just strap on, as Carol would say. I would typically go with strap in.
Say.
Just hang with
Said
us.
That once.
Okay. Once you finish listening to this podcast, you're gonna be like, holy fuck, how are they not in prison already? All right, continue.
Yeah. So prosecutors have gathered evidence suggesting that Trump sometimes kept classified documents in his office where they were visible and even showed them to others. These actions could potentially constitute disclosures of classified information and national defense materials to unauthorized individuals, which would be a violation of the Espionage Act. The investigation scope has extended to include broader timeline of possible obstruction episodes, ranging from events at Mar-a-Lago prior to the subpoena to the period following the FBI search on August 8th.
They're not just looking at obstruction from the day that they sent the subpoena. They're looking at possible planning before the subpoena was even sent to obstruct the investigation. So they just got a lot on their plate there. And if you're wondering, like, God damn, Jack Smith, what's taking you so long? Well, every time they fucking investigate something, they discover more crimes. Then you have to collect more evidence, right? And then you have to crime fraud, accept all of Trump's lawyers and get them to fucking come in and testify and turn them into witnesses.
The timeline of events is crucial in determining Trump's intent in retaining hundreds of classified documents after leaving the White House. This intent is a key factor in deciding whether charges will be filed, potentially for obstruction, mishandling national security secrets, or both.
Spoiler alert, Carol, it's going to be both.
Yeah, it seems like both. I guess I jumped ahead of myself and oversimplified my analysis before, but I guess I was on track. Haha! Take that. Basic law school stuff.
Carol,
Okay.
it's almost like you've been doing this for a year or something.
Yeah. The precise timing of activities related to moving the boxes of documents, particularly after the subpoena was received, is an important element in the investigation. Grand jury activity has slowed in recent weeks, and Trump's attorneys have taken steps that suggest they believe a charging decision is imminent. They've outlined Trump's potential defense to members of Congress and sought a meeting with the Attorney General.
They literally wrote up a letter to the Attorney General, like begging him, crying. Hey,
no, it sounded like a Trump tweet. Like his lawyers have deteriorated to that level where they'll just like let him write a demand letter.
I mean, I guess we could read the letter.
Didn't it sound like that? It was like this outrageous, like, abuse of the justice system that has never before been seen. Like,
oh, okay. I'll put up
on many levels and many demand letters.
It was pretty bad. It was like, all right, here it goes. Nope, because supposedly the lawyers drafted this letter and sent it to Garland, but I'm going to read it in Trump's voice so you'll kind of get an understanding of what it is we were dealing with this fucking insane bonkers letter. No president of the United States has ever in the history of our country been baselessly investigated in such an outrageous and unlawful fashion. That was like supposedly words from John Raleigh and James Trusty. But once you hear it in the Trump voice, you can clearly understand that Trump absolutely had to dictate this thing. They also requested a meeting with Garland at your earliest convenience to discuss the ongoing injustice that is being perpetrated by your special counsel and its prosecutors. Yeah, so, Trump wrote that shit. And they're like, oh, absolutely can't indict Trump because he didn't do anything wrong, blah, blah, blah. And this is like Karening at the max level, like going straight to the Attorney General for an investigation that he's no longer overseeing. It was just like whining to the, anyway, yes. Even Trump's lawyers are like, damn, this indictment's about to come. So I'm fairly sure that if they're scared that indictments are coming soon.
And it just makes me wonder about what you said, that Fani Willis was pointing to August, but his also the New York suit is supposed to be in March of next year or something like that. Yes. So I wonder if they're planning on having the federal suit first, if the charges are imminent.
I would imagine that what's happening in Georgia and what's happening in New York and what's happening at DOJ is all happening independent of each other. It would seem, I can't imagine a scenario where the three departments are like coordinating on who's filing charges when. I mean, it just seems to make sense that New York went first because the set of crimes that they charged Trump for were the oldest. And
but they couldn't get a trial date for like 8 months.
Well, if Trump's team had wanted a trial sooner than that, I'm sure under the speedy trial clause, they absolutely could have had a trial in a few weeks, if not a month. But considering like the documents case is fairly complicated and will take time to establish a criminal defense in that trial, just given Trump's nature to want to delay as long as possible, March of next year doesn't even seem that unreasonable of a timeline for New York. I actually assumed it would be even later than that. So that just put my 2 cents in on there. But yeah, I don't think Jack Smith's doing any coordination with either of those departments. We're not getting any leaks out of the DOJ or the special counsel investigation.
It's nice having a government who can like function without giving away the plot of what they're doing.
Right.
I mean,
so you read a news article or you're watching a fucking news segment and they're like, oh, sources familiar with the investigation. That's like fucking witnesses or people who've been subpoenaed or, had to turn over documents who've been interviewed, or the fucking lawyers in the case, right? They're the ones painting the picture of what's going on inside the investigation because they're the ones being interviewed or subpoenaed by prosecutors. Or, testifying before the grand jury. So they're giving you the information, or at least some of the information that they gave them prosecutors. Anyway, went off on a rabbit hole there.
So during the negotiations over the return of the documents, Trump reportedly told a lead DOJ official that they could request anything they needed. However, the DOJ rejected this offer and proceeded with a raid of Mar-a-Lago. The National Archives and the DOJ had previously requested the return of any and all documents with classification markings, but Trump failed to comply even after receiving a lawful subpoena. So, by the way, let's not call this a raid. This was a lawful search that was planned.
I'm comfortable with it being called a raid. I don't give a fuck. Like, you can read the FBI manual. It refers to the execution of a search warrant
as a raid
of a potentially hostile target as a raid. It's fine. I don't give a fuck.
Anyway, the investigation is focused on a particular incident on June 2nd when boxes of documents were moved into a storage area just before a senior Justice Department lawyer arrived at Mar-a-Lago with agents. On the following day, law enforcement officials visited to collect materials in response to the grand jury subpoena. One of the employees who moved the boxes claimed that they were merely helping Trump with Walt Nauta, who was using a dolly or hand truck for the task. I don't know. Trump ballot Walt Nauta. Okay, that's just a person's name.
Yeah, Walt Nauta works for Trump, the Trump organization, and apparently he has been providing evidence or testimony to the grand jury about the actions that were taking place around this time of the FBI subpoena and what was going on with these boxes, like who was involved in moving them and when and where and why. And we're going to eventually get to this about whether the security footage of the room where the documents were being held during this time, whether or not that was altered. Anyway, we'll get to that.
Yeah. So John Irving, a lawyer representing one of the employees involved in moving the boxes and not the esteemed author of fiction, stated that his clients did not know the contents of the boxes and was simply assisting Nauta. This employee, a longtime Mar-a-Lago staff member, has cooperated with the government and does not consider their actions to be significant. However, there are concerns. There are concerns about potential conflicts of interest, as Irving represents several witnesses in the investigation, and his law firm is being funded by Trump's Save America PAC.
Yeah. So before we move on, we're going to run into this common theme of lawyers representing witnesses in multiple Trump investigations, and those lawyers are being paid by Trump.
Yeah, general legal advice. Don't let someone pay your legal fees if they're going to control or seemingly control the legal. It's just a bad thing. Don't do it. It's such a conflict of interest. Don't put yourself in a conflict of interest like that. Oh my
Absolutely.
God. I phrased it poorly, but
no, you can have a lawyer who normally would be operating in your best interest, but if he's being paid by the subject of the criminal investigation that you're a potential witness in, that lawyer has a dual obligation at that point. Does he provide you with the best legal defense, or
he can't perform his legal obligations?
No. Does that person coach you to give testimony that's beneficial to the person that's paying him, even if it's not in your best interest? And that is one of the conflicts of interest we'll be regularly diving into. I mean, I feel like we've covered
any
that.
Lawyer who would take that case with such a bad conflict of interest, you should not hire them as your lawyer.
No, that person should not represent you. And we've already had a previous instance of this recently in the Georgia investigation into.
I don't want any lawyer who would have me for a client.
Carol, cut that up and put that in a commercial.
Investigators are keen to gather any evidence indicating that Trump or individuals close to him deliberately withheld classified papers from the government.
Duh.
In another development, On the evening of June 2nd, the same day the boxes were moved, a lawyer for Trump contacted the Justice Department and offered access to classified documents related to the subpoena.
Okay, Carol, tell them exactly what happened the next day. On the 2nd, they're like, let's move these boxes over here. All right, you got that done, guys? All right, let's call up the feds. Tell them they can come take a look. And then
where everything's cool. We're good. Come check it out. Yeah. The next day, a sealed envelope containing 38 classified documents and a signed attestation of a diligent search were provided to the officials. Ooh. During their visit, they were invited to the storage room where boxes of documents from Trump's presidency were stored, but were not allowed to open or examine their contents. When FBI agents obtained a court order to search Mar-a-Lago 2 months later, they discovered over 100 additional classified documents. Ooh.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So not only are they like packing up the boxes and moving the things that they want to keep somewhere out of the sight of the FBI agents, they're like bringing them in. Like, here you go. Here's what we got. All clear. And then the FBI has to come back with a search warrant. Like, no, it's not. And there's so much in there. I would also like to just go back for a second to the part where Trump himself is accused of, well, we know for sure because we saw the photos themselves of Trump having possession of some of these particular classified documents in his office where numerous people frequent. I mean, the idea that he would be showing them to people, it's not even out of the realm of possibility. He practically admitted it on national TV in the CNN town hall when he was asked did he show them to anyone, and he was like, "Not really." It's what the fuck is not really? That's not no. That's not no.
Yeah.
When the trial comes, I guarantee you, absolutely. The prosecutors are going to cut that clip up and show it at the trial. Trump, did you show any of the classified documents to anyone? It's like, not really. The fuck does that even mean? And I talked about this in the rundown earlier. Like Jack Teixeira, who's definitely going to go to prison for a long time for his disclosure of classified documents in those Discord channels. If he's getting 20 years, Trump, I mean, yeah, just tack on an extra 20 for the espionage along with the obstruction. All right. Carol, this is going to be a good one. It's just going to pile on. The evidence just becomes more and more damning.
Sorry, I was just singing.
No, I appreciate the soundtrack. So what we have up next is Corkscrewed You. I'm sorry, it's terrible. Terrible pun. So compelling evidence suggests that Trump had knowledge of the subpoena obligations, or rather his subpoena obligations, and examines whether his subsequent failure to comply was a deliberate act of obstruction. Like I said, tack on the 20 years of espionage to the obstruction charges. A previously undisclosed warning was given to Trump by his lawyer, Everett Corcoran, stating that he could not in any way retain any classified documents after being subpoenaed for their return. Ruh-roh. This warning carries significance in the criminal investigation as it demonstrates Trump's awareness of his obligation under the subpoena. In June of 2020, Corcoran discovered approximately 40 documents in the storage room that we talked about previously and informed the Justice Department that no further materials remained at the property despite the FBI finding over 100 documents after they executed that search warrant. Jack Smith has recently focused on the reasons behind that non-compliance with the subpoena, and prosecutors have been particularly interested in Trump's valet, Walt Nauta, who we discussed previously, who allegedly moved the boxes out of the storage room before and after the subpoena, as captured on the surveillance footage obtained through the subpoena. Yep, got you on tape stealing boxes, Craig. How'd you get fired on your day off? The article highlights Corcoran's detailed notes with Friday for anyone who hasn't seen that movie. Like, what have you been doing? It's 30 years old. The evidence highlights Corcoran's detailed notes which provide crucial information regarding Trump and Nauta's involvement in the bot subpoena response. These notes, which prosecutors have reviewed and presented to the grand jury, outline the discussions between Corcoran and Trump, including specific details about the search for classified documents in Mar-a-Lago. Furthermore, the notes reveal that Nauta had offered to assist Corcoran in going through the boxes, but Corcoran declined and asked him to stay outside, which seems like a very prudent move by Trump's lawyer. Maybe not all of his lawyers are that terrible at lawyering. However, the search took longer than expected, lasting several days, which seems like a red flag that you can't perform the search in a single 24-hour period, leading to concerns that the storage room may have been left unattended at times. And I would imagine that the surveillance footage could attest to that, whether or not.
Unattended by who? The FBI who were searching it?
Unattended by Trump's legal team.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I back me on that.
Which means
I'm not just playing spelling bee in the background and zoning out.
Are you doing good at spelling bee? Like, what are the letters?
Not really. I got, well, the pangram is inhibitor, so they got those letters.
Oh yeah, awesome.
But I'm not doing that well. I'm just at nice, and I feel like I got all the words. I'm not doing good.
All right, if anyone wants to help Carol complete her New York Times spelling bee, you can
go back in time and to help me out.
Oh yeah, well I was gonna say you could tweet the answers to her at Carol Edwina on, or however you pronounce that. I'm sorry, Edwina.
But you wouldn't know
Twitter.
that. Edwine.
Yeah, it does get confusing, the pronunciation not quite lining up with the spelling. Anyway, furthermore, Corcoran's notes also describe Trump's facial expressions and reactions during discussions about the subpoena. So these are super highly detailed notes. And the fact that Corcoran was taking such detailed notes reportedly irritated Trump, who learned about them only after they were subpoenaed. And of course, there's always that classic reference to The Wire. Are you taking notes on a criminal fucking conspiracy?
At least eat them afterward.
So constructing an obstruction case is challenging, requiring prosecutors to demonstrate that Trump arranged for Nauta to remove the boxes containing the classified documents, knowing they were demanded by the subpoena with the intention of concealing them from Corcoran's search. Well, that was my fault for not having my computer muted. Do I get like fined for $1 or something for that? For having interruptions during the podcast? All right. I'm all good. All right.
You're good. If you have an extra grilled cheese sandwich, I'd have a bite. But
I would love to share my grilled cheese sandwich with you, although I'm currently like stuffy and dealing with some congestion and a little tickle in my throat. So you probably don't want.
No, I'll just take a bite first and then you can have the rest.
All right. Well, I'll take your germs. That's totally fine. To address the gaps in surveillance footage where the documents were being stored, the special counsel recently subpoenaed Matthew Calamari Sr., the Trump Organization security chief, and their chief operating officer, as well as his son, Matthew Calamari Jr., the director of corporate security. Their testimonies before the grand jury focused on a text message sent by Nauta to Calamari Sr. regarding the Justice Department's request for the tapes. Prosecutors encountered difficulties with Nauta's cooperation, leading them to explore other witnesses who could shed light on his role. In recent interviews, investigators sought information on whether Nauta removed the boxes containing the documents during the time of the subpoena and where he took them. Oh, Lord Jesus. Yeah, it appears Jack Smith is approaching this from every single possible angle.
That man knows how to special counsel. He knows how to run a case. It's hot. I've only seen that one picture of him where he looks like a Star Trek character. But
you mean
like in his arbitral robe or whatever?
With the beard. I think he's since shaved. So you don't have to necessarily worry about that. He no longer looks like a character from a science fiction television show. But yeah, so I'm going to take a quick break, and after these messages, we'll be right back because I need something to drink because my throat is fucking scratchy as shit.
All right.
Yay.
Oh, you were back real quick, so I won't go get a snack.
You can go get a snack if you want.
I probably shouldn't. It's probably 12:30.
No, go ahead and go munch. You deserve a snack. You are a snack.
I said she was a snack before when I said you needed a snack, and we made some dirty jokes about it, and I'll be right back.
Okay.
It wasn't the best snack for me going next. It's a very sticky peanut butter sandwich.
It's very sticky. I need a snack.
Ooh, it was very sticky.
Yeah. Okay, I'll tell you something, kind of girls. I did have like some wings in there in the fridge that I forgot about. I don't know how long they've been in there. And when I went to check them, I was like, oh, they were a little moldy. I had to throw them away. It's gross.
Damn.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Because I was like, oh, damn, I forgot I had wings. And then I looked at them and I was like, ew.
It's not just blue cheese. Extra blue cheese.
Yeah, there's all kinds of penicillin growing on my fucking wings. So
that sounds like it's bad for business. Next section. Federal prosecutors have also issued subpoenas for information about Trump's business dealings in foreign countries since he took office. Ooh, this is fun.
Yeah, because if crime fraud accepting his lawyer wasn't enough, and, discovering that they were having a dress rehearsal for how to hide the boxes of documents from the FBI wasn't enough.
Yeah, and enter Saudi Arabia. All right. The subpoena drafted by special counsel Jack Smith targets the Trump Organization and focuses on real estate licensing and development deals in 7 countries: China, France, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates, and Oman.
Carol, before you move on, why perhaps might the Department of Justice being investigating Trump's willful retention of classified documents also be scrutinizing his business relationships?
Well, gee, I would hate to think that those two things might be connected, but I would think that a business that's otherwise unprofitable and suddenly is able to get all of these deals in countries that are not, except for France. What the fuck, France?
Hey,
in countries that are not friendly to the U.S. necessarily, or are, but have like questionable human rights shit that I wish we weren't that involved.
Well, France is going more right wing than they've ever been, so it's not entirely out of the question that in some ways France is not our friend.
But yes, it would. I guess if I had to speculate, what non-reckless speculation say that he would possibly be negotiating national secrets in exchange for helping to keep his shit hotel brand alive.
Man, his fucking golf courses from imploding. Those things are fucking expensive to run. I mean, it's difficult to make money off those. I don't understand. Anyway,
the world is his Ponzi scheme. That's what we've all determined. And it just never ends.
Carol, if our stupid podcast didn't have such whack titles that begin with "Pardon Everything," the world is this Ponzi scheme would be an amazing podcast title.
Well, you could name the episode that, or not. It appears that the investigation is expanding its scope as prosecutors scrutinize whether Trump broke the law by taking sensitive government materials with him upon leaving the White House and failing to fully comply with demands for their return. Yeah. Despite Trump's promise to abstain from foreign deals during his presidency, he made an exception for Saudi-based real estate company, licensing his name for a housing, hotel, and golf complex in Oman, just before his 3rd presidential campaign.
Announcing.
Right. Just before announcing his 3rd presidential campaign. English is hard when it's your first
I was just
language.
No, I was just going to getting you to say it again so I could cut it up. Anyway.
The subpoena
wait a
also
second.
includes
Hold on. Wait, I can't let that slide, what you just said, because Trump took all kinds of fucking foreign money while he was in the fucking White House. Like, all kinds of foreign governments was spending money in his goddamn businesses every single fucking day. Staying at his hotels.
But I'm not going to take a salary. Oh my God, he's such a
paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for membership at his fucking, this fucking golf clubs. Like,
charging for the Secret Service members to stay. Anyway.
Yeah, they were fucking dumping money into his businesses all over the place. He just didn't make any real estate deals. I'm sorry, continue. I'm just irate at the idea that, like, Trump keeping his problem. Get the fuck out of here.
Everything's fucked with him. The subpoena also includes records related to Trump's involvement with Live Golf, a Saudi-backed golf venture that holds tournaments at some of his golf clubs.
Yeah, Live Golf, again, for those of you not familiar with, like, what the Saudis are doing, it's sports washing. Like, if you don't know what that is, hit the Google button. Again, like, just Google everything. Like, sports washing, Live Golf, pull that up. Dive in, have at it. This podcast is already too fucking long. We don't have time to just dive into these things. All right, continue.
Yeah, by demanding these records, prosecutors seem to be exploring possible connections between Trump's foreign business deals and the classified documents he took with him after leaving office.
You know, and also they should probably explore the relationship between Jared Kushner and the Saudis, given that they've presented him with the $2 billion investment fund that he's
probably their chief witness.
Yeah, you know, it's entirely possible that he had some role in helping them murder Jamal Khashoggi, as well as I don't know, helping them round up members of the Saudi royal family in a power grab a few years back. So, might want to investigate that too. Just saying, come on, Jack Smith. I know your plate is full, but.
Yeah, it's weird. We don't hear more about him unless he's a cooperating witness, but then we'll still hopefully hear.
Do you listen to our podcast? Do we have time to talk about Jared Kushner?
Fine.
We do this and we don't have.
Furthermore, government documents related to Middle Eastern countries were discovered in Trump's possession. And during an FBI search at Mar-a-Lago, materials linked to President Emmanuel Macron of France were recovered. It remains unclear why Trump retained these documents. Trump has argued that the documents were his personal property, citing the Presidential Records Act as justification for taking them.
No, I'm sorry. I apologize for that. I don't know what happened there. All right. So Trump has argued that the documents were his personal property, but the Presidential Records Act makes very clear that Trump was not authorized to retain any of those documents, classified or otherwise, once he was no longer the president. We had this problem.
Yeah, that's why it's problematic that he received the advice from Tom Fitton, the head of conservative group Judicial Watch, who wrongly suggested that the documents belonged to Trump. Now, I would like to remind the listeners, as I've reminded Tom Fitton many times, that he is in no way, shape, or form a lawyer. Nor is he Trump's lawyer. He's just like some asshole. I mean, I'm just some asshole who passed the bar, but like, he didn't even do that. Probably because he couldn't pass the character assessment, but who knows? Speculation. I'm just asking questions.
So he's acting as Trump's advisor, right? Not like a legal representative.
But why are you taking advice from this jerk? Like, whatever. Well, anyway.
Because Trump is an insane sociopath who wants people to tell him it's okay to do the things that he wants to do, and Tom Fitton does that. Yeah. He's a yes man.
Too small. Anyway, while establishing a motive for keeping these documents might assist as the investigation, it is not necessarily required to prove potential crimes. The government's focus has been on whether Trump willfully held national defense secrets and obstructed their repeated attempts to retrieve the materials.
Man, we don't talk. Man, there's so much to talk about, but the podcast is it's already entirely too long. And I apologize we regularly have this issue. There's so much to get to, and there's so much more that I want to talk about, but time constraints. We just can't get into every little minor detail, but a few of the things we just, to recap, one of the issues with the documents, and one of Trump's potential defenses probably doesn't even matter because one of the statutes, Jack Smith quoted, it doesn't require the documents to actually be classified in the case of bringing espionage charges, right? Like if it's national defense secrets, whether they've been classified or declassified, willful retention of those when you're not authorized to retain them. It's just a clear cut violation. Also sharing those documents with other people, like that's just, you can't, it's a big no-no. Another thing, this idea that Trump declassified the documents if the FBI wants to attack that premise. The fact that the documents still had their classification markings on them when they were retrieved by the FBI is probably a fairly clear-cut signal that they weren't declassified, because as the process goes.
Yeah, you at least have to tear off the cover page. I mean, that's how it works.
No.
At the Tom Fitton School of Law.
The process by which the documents are declassified means that the classification markings are removed from.
You at least have to cross it out with a Sharpie. Nice. I learned that at Trump University.
It's a little more in-depth than that for sure. And then the agencies who have the jurisdiction over the documents usually are involved in that process. There's usually some record. But anyway, that's just to point out a few of the holes that Trump's defenses fail to address, and like some potential pitfalls that he'll be facing when these charges do come. We've covered a lot here. It's been a lot going on in the past week.
The last week being 3 years.
We're learning all this information, but we're also learning that the grand jury they haven't been involved in much investigative activity here lately. And that is probably as clear a sign as any will get that indictments are forthcoming. I mean, the lawyers have been crime fraud accepted. They've gotten all kind of surveillance footage. They've gotten testimony from Trump's head of security, and they've gotten cooperation from witnesses who were involved in moving the boxes around and back and forth into Trump's office. I mean, apparently Nauta was involved in loading up an SUV during the summer with what could have potentially been boxes of classified information for Trump's yearly summer excursion to Bedminster, New Jersey.
We watched them stealing it all on live TV.
Well, we watched them pack the shit up and take it down to Florida. But apparently after that, it's entirely possible that they packed the shit up and took it to New Jersey. And I talked about this once on the podcast. Like,
my peanut butter looks like a bird.
You licked it clean, Carol.
No, I used my finger. But
that's even hotter.
Peanut butter fingers. That's what they'll call me when someone tries to when I run against someone and they're like, Carol ate something with peanut butter. And I'll be like, oh, for Carol.
Carol, did you lick the sticky stuff off his fingers? Anyway, I talked about this previously on another episode of the podcast. The idea that like Mar-a-Lago is Trump's winter home. Well, what the fuck does he do in the summertime? He travels across the country to New Jersey. And like, it's not an insane idea that Trump might have packed up a number of these documents, especially the ones he found to be the most valuable, in taking them off to New Jersey to safeguard them, or, considering.
Look, you say it's not insane, but when it comes to things Trump has done, I'm willing to suspend disbelief on almost anything.
Okay, point taken, Carol. What I am certain of is that now that Jack Smith has been appointed special prosecutor and his team has been very aggressive in the ways and means by which they go about investigating Trump's handling of classified documents, that if they believe that there were documents at Bedminster currently, if they had evidence of that they would have already executed a search warrant there. And I'm not saying they're not infallible. I'm just saying that if they thought that they had the evidence of that they would execute a search warrant. So you can probably infer that because that hasn't taken place, they don't have any eyewitness accounts or any surveillance footage that they might have received when they subpoenaed the security company for the footage in Mar-a-Lago that would suggest Bedminster was a place that currently contains classified documents. Now, it's entirely possible, when Trump flew up to Bedminster, he took the shit with him, and when he came back to Mar-a-Lago, he took the shit back. So, that's one possibility. Just for those of you out there wondering, like, well, why haven't they searched the other places? Well, for one, to get a search warrant, you need some fairly clear-cut evidence that there's a possibility that in this case, the classified documents would be in a specific location. And without that, like, no judges. First of all, in a normal search warrant, you'd have to have evidence of probable cause. In a situation like this, where Trump is a president and former president rather, and given how regardless of how you may feel about, law enforcement taking extra precautions to not violate Trump's rights, I would just say that, like, imagine a scenario where, Biden's no longer president one day, a Republican president with a conservative in charge of the Justice Department. Like, you would want them to go through the same hoops in a potential investigation of Biden that this current DOJ is going through with Trump. So just keep that in mind. I know it fucking sucks that, like, the good guys have to play fair no matter what the dumb shit the bad guys are doing. But, like, again, the reason we even have a democracy in the first place is because someone has to play by the rules, and it sadly has to be us. We just gotta cross our I's and dot our T's here. And I say we like I'm the fucking Department of Justice. I'm just some jackass with a podcast. All right.
What we got next? What do we have next?
So, in a bit of a break from the investigation into Trump's illegal retention of classified documents and the obstruction of said investigation, we are going
now turning to some of other Trump's crimes. And the related defendants.
It's tangentially related to one of Trump's other crimes that he is currently being investigated for. Because if you weren't aware, Trump is being investigated for a shit ton of crimes. Maybe you haven't listened to our podcast before, and this is breaking news to you. Well, we don't have like a scroll at the bottom of the podcast that says
unless you started like 45 minutes into this episode, because we've been talking about it
nonstop. What we have up next is the fact that we're not so proud of the DC police. The DC Metropolitan Police Department Lieutenant Shane Lamond, age 47, was arrested on charges of lying about leaking confidential information to Enrique Tarrio, the leader of the extremist group Proud Boys, and obstructing an investigation into the destruction of a Black Lives Matter banner. If you're not familiar with Enrique Tarrio, I just assume that you've never listened to this podcast or like don't keep up with insurrection related events, but he has recently been found guilty of seditious conspiracy. Another one bites the dust. Well, anyway, according to the indictment, Lamond allegedly warned Tarrio about an arrest warrant related to the banner's destruction. Tarrio himself, this took place in Washington, D.C. days before the attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, this burning of the banner. Recently, Tarrio and 3 other Proud Boy leaders were convicted of seditious conspiracy charges. Lamond has been indicted on 1 count of obstruction of justice and 3 counts of making false statements. So Lamond, who supervised the intelligence branch of the police department, the police department's Homeland Security Bureau, was responsible for monitoring groups like the Proud Boys. His name repeatedly came up during Tarrio's trial, with evidence showing extensive communication between the two, including approximately 500 messages exchanged through various platforms. The indictment alleges that Lamond used the Telegram messaging platform to provide Tarrio with information about law enforcement activities. Lamont also communicated with Tarrio regarding the banner investigation and reportedly tried to convince another unit within the police department that the Proud Boys were not racist. Like, I don't understand why you would put your credibility on the line to defend these people, especially against the charges that they might be racist when they're clearly fucking racist. Like, what the fuck?
It's like part of their creed.
Lamond's messages mentioned that Trump rather mentioned the Trump and American flags taken by Antifa and set on fire. I mean, Antifa is not a real thing. I don't know how many times we have to go through that. Suggesting that they should be classified as hate crimes. Well, there is no Antifa, for one, and like, actually, just cut. There's no Antifa. There's no such thing. Following the Capitol attack, Lamond and Tarrio continued their communications. Tarrio expressed to Lamond that he believed that they could have prevented the attack. Like, I don't understand how he believes they could have prevented that, unless they fucking arrested the Proud Boys in the midst of their attack on the Capitol. I don't know. Lamond in turn expressed his support for the Proud Boys and stated that he did not want to see their group's name or reputation tarnished. Jurors in Tarrio's trial heard testimony that Lamond frequently provided internal information about law enforcement operations to Tarrio before the Capitol breach. Lamond is expected to appear in court. He is currently on administrative leave. The DC Metro Police Department has stated that they will conduct an internal review once the federal case against Lamond is resolved. And I'm like, bitch, why wait? Like, you've got one of your chiefs basically conspiring with a convicted seditious conspirator. And you're like, yeah, we're going to hold off on investigating that. Like, the fuck? Like, he may not be the only one. Like, we just recently discovered a couple of FBI agents, like one who was actually involved with the activities on January 6th, like at the Capitol, and another who was trying to cover up for a fucking criminal defendant. I don't know. You guys should like investigate your own, maybe try and clean the house, get rid of these fuckers before this shit happens again. I mean, he's basically an informant for the Proud Boys. I don't know. You might want to take that seriously. And apparently he's such a fucking dupe. Tarrio would feed him information that wasn't actually very damning in order to get information about what DC Metro Police was doing. That was extremely valuable in their plans to attack the Capitol on 1/6. So it's fucking bananas.
So like, is this guy just dumb, or like, or is it he's just
dumb, as well as just
on purpose dumb?
You know, look, there's a lot of police officers all around this country who align with these right wing. Yes, actually, they align with these right wing groups, and they are very sympathetic to their causes. It's totally common, sadly, that this is the case. It's not an unusual development that law enforcement officers would not only be fans of these groups, but also communicate with them regularly. I mean, I think we've previously talked on the podcast about how these groups have been in contact with the Secret Service.
Yeah.
Yep. Or the FBI.
Yep.
Yep. And, and they're members of these groups who were formerly law enforcement officers. So, I mean, it's a level of incestuous activity between former law enforcement officers, current law enforcement officers, and these right-wing militias that, I mean, I feel like should be more thoroughly investigated. But again, like, you listen to this podcast, people, you see how fucking crazy this shit is we're talking about. I don't even know how much time law enforcement has to like investigate their own, but they should. I mean, what do you want them to do? Well, I guess that concludes the news dump for this week. It's that was plenty. Carol, do you have a nominee for the Shithole of the Week award? Because I forgot to come up with one.
So tired.
Oh, it's so bad. I am exhausted as well. If you can't tell, I'm slightly under the weather, and also the news is fucking exhausting as well. You know what? I'm gonna go with Elon Musk. He's attempting to put microchips in people's brains. He can't launch a rocket. He can't launch a presidential campaign, and his cars fucking explode.
And I'm sure he wants to put chips in our brain for free speech. Yeah, I mean, he's always a shithole. He had the chance at the beginning of the Russian war on Ukraine to be a hero and chose to, like, because someone like said something not nice about him, he was like, I'm gonna punish the world and I want to become. Why does Putin get all the attention?
You know what?
I have money. He thinks he's wealthier than me. Like,
I think I broke a Pardon the Insurrection podcast rule that we were no longer allowing Elon on the Shithole of the Week award, but I mean,
he's trying to put chips in people's brains. He's trying to launch Ron DeSantis, and like he made Twitter a right-wing shithole.
Oh man, yeah, he's been really racking up shithole points this week, so I guess I can make it a special exception for him.
If Ty were awake, she'd be totally into it.
I mean, it's just ironic because one of the right-wing conspiracy theories is that, like, we're attempting to put chips in people when we inject them with the vaccine, but, like, Elon's literally out here like, bro, I got a company for that. We literally put chips in people's brains. But, yeah. All right, by unanimous consent, even though Ty's asleep, I guess, you know, this is the one time in which it's okay to not have consent from a woman. I don't know. That didn't come out the way I meant it, but you know what I'm saying. Hereby award Elon Musk with the Shithole of the Week award. Carol, do you have any closing thoughts this evening?
Just shout out to my homie and wherever people go when they die. Pour one out for Michael. Love you, man. Rest in peace.
Oof.
That's all I got.
Well, that took a dark turn. As for my closing thoughts, again, you know, look, the Republican primary is coming up here soon. I would suggest you will just monitor that closely. The parties are just going to continue to implode. Like, they're going to be backstabbing each other with regularity now, especially now that Fox is going to have to decide whether or not it needs to pick a new lane. Well, they're also battling Tucker Carlson. Well, Tucker Carlson is also trying to team up with Elon Musk to do his right wing shit on Twitter. Elon Musk is trying to team up with Ron DeSantis, who's trying to beat Trump, with Trump trying to murder everyone who's running against him in the primary. Yeah, it's just a tangled web of lies, deception, betrayal, and backstabbing. Let's not do that in the Democratic Party. We got our guy. Our guy's, he's already in the White House. He's already proved he can win. Like, he's done a fantastic job. I mean, I guess, like, the only two major concerns I have about Joe are, and this is a reasonable concern, like, when people bring this up, they're not.
Yes, his age, we get it. Yeah.
Yes, some people probably are bringing it up in bad faith, but for the most part, I mean, you know, it's a genuine concern that his current age, he's in his 80s, and, you know, upon the end of his second term, I think he would be 86. But he's also proven that he has the ability to do the job. And he has a competent team around him as well. There's a very capable vice president in Kamala Harris. And should, well, you know what? I won't even mention the possibility. The other concern I have for Joe is that he is just not vicious enough in attacking Republicans for the most part, except for as DeSantis
Ron's rollout. That was funny.
Yeah, except for when Ron attempted the rollout of his presidential campaign, which you know, probably flummoxed all of his supporters, that it failed miserably. At least Biden's social media team was on it, because they were like, hey, come support our campaign. Our link works. As Ron's Twitter Spaces crashed, that was fucking incredible. I mean, I just need them to take that energy and turn it up to 10 all the way, and that would totally eliminate one of my major concerns for Biden in his 2024 campaign. But look, Joe Biden's a nice guy. Sometimes we just have to let him play good cop, and we have to be the bad cop on his behalf. So make sure you do what you need to do, set these motherfuckers straight, and make sure they pay the price for all of their bad behavior and ill intentions towards us in our country. and make sure you are prepared for the long battle we have ahead of us in 2024. And that concludes this episode of Pardon the Interaction.